A senior DOJ official confirming to NBC News that an analyst who was a key source for the Steele Dossier was arrested this morning.
Federal authorities have arrested this man this morning. His name is Igor Danchenko. He's a Russian-born analyst living in the United States, and he was interviewed back in 2017 by the FBI about his contributions to that Christopher Steele dossier. And what he told the FBI was that he provided raw intelligence to Christopher Steele about things that were essentially rumors, including that salacious allegation about a sex tape in the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Moscow. The FBI found that his information was unverified and was portrayed with more confidence in the Steele dossier than it actually deserved. But they are part of this investigation by federal prosecutor John Durham. And as you'll recall, Durham indicted a Democratic lawyer on charges of lying to the FBI as part of that probe. This is really the third set of charges in that probe coming today.
There's this new bombshell in the special counsel John Durham's criminal probe of Trump-Russia. Russian national Igor Danchenko, he was arrested today for lying to the FBI. He's the top source for the anti-Trump Steele dossier that was funded by Democrats in Hillary's campaign. But Congressman, sit tight. Here's the bombshell. The Durham indictment in this latest indictment reveals Democrat corruption, that a Democrat operative who was active in Moscow was a source for Danchenko, who then was a source for Steele.
This guy Danchenko, he's Russian-born. He's lived in the United States for a long time. It's interesting that he wasn't in Russia at the time that this information was fed to him and then ultimately to Steele. This is an important piece of the puzzle.
The Democrat operative who was deployed, active in Moscow, he was a former chair of a National Democrat political organization, according to the Durham indictment. He worked for Bill Clinton. He was a state chair. He was an advisor to the Hillary campaign. But he was active in Moscow. He networked with the Russian parliament, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But the point is that the FBI used the Steele dossier for FISA wiretaps to go after Carter Page and to spy on the Trump campaign. Those FISA wiretaps are meant for terrorists.
You can look at this a couple of different ways. Number one, the FBI was duped, and that indicates that they very poorly performed on this issue and they were fooled, or that they were a part of it, which is even more of a problem. And so when you think about some of the key players, Bill Priestap, Pete Strzok, Lisa Page, Andy McCabe, and others, a lot of questions have to be asked and answered still yet. We're still working at the bottom of this. Our Durham is still working at the very bottom of this, building the case, putting the pieces of the puzzle together here, and I believe there's going to be a lot more come out as time goes on.
So did the Democrats use Russian disinformation that made its way into the Steele dossier that the FBI used to spy on Trump? Is that plausible?
It appears that way. One of the things that I've observed in my time here in Washington is that if the Democrats are accusing Republicans of doing something, generally speaking, that means they're doing it themselves. And so as they were accusing the Trump campaign and Trump himself of Russia collusion, it appears that they in fact were the ones colluding with Russians and feeding information to the FBI through Steele. And that means that the law firm that he was associated with and others are probably going to need to find a pretty good lawyer at this point. Well, Steele had already been discredited beforehand, and so he should never have been a credible source of information. I think ultimately you're going to see more indictments coming from Durham, and this will be interesting, but it's a long way from over.
Special counsel John Durham indicting the principal source for the Steele dossier with 5 counts of lying to the FBI and creating a false narrative during the Trump-Russia investigation in 2017. He's a Russian. Igor Danchenko appeared briefly in court yesterday, planning to plead not guilty before being released on bond.
The fact that this is rooted deeply in 2 operatives that were coming together and trying to assist each other in coming up with a file that they could use to take down a candidate and then eventually a president was so deeply rooted in the Clinton campaign.
So this Russian, how does this Russian link back to the Clinton campaign?
Well, you have 2 individuals that were utilized in both Bill Clinton's campaign, and then you have Hillary Clinton and their campaign that are utilizing them. You know, payments being made through lawyers, the law firm of the campaign, to individuals. So what you now see are both sides of the conspiracy. You see where it came from, and you see those that were operating inside the conspiracy to fabricate out of whole cloth facts that they knew would be damaging to an up-and-coming candidate.
Is linked to a longtime Clinton ad man, Dolan. How?
And make no mistake, Danchenko was claiming that he had information about the collusion between Trump and Russia, and then he was utilizing Dolan as a potential source, and now Dolan is admitting that he is making up many of the aspects of the dossier. I don't think we're seeing the end. This is not the pinnacle prosecution of Durham. This is an individual you prosecute as early as you can and get into discussions about him exposing others in order to save his hide from federal prison.
Lies to FBI, and tell me if I'm wrong here. So Steele gets hired by Fusion GPS to do investigating, but he can't go to Russia. So he used Danchenko to give him information. That helps formulate the dossier. It turns out Danchenko says, what I put in there was just all hearsay. I don't know if any of it's corroborated, but he lied about that. Who's Danchenko? He's linked to Chuck Dolan Jr., longtime PR executive with Bill and Hillary Clinton, and is known as one of these great Democrats. Why would they do something like this? Initially, it seems, because of her email scandal. All the focus on her email and the terrible decision she made as Secretary of State, crushing any type of forensic evidence by destroying her server. And now all of a sudden, let's put the heat on Donald Trump. Let's make up stories about Russian banks linked with Donald Trump. We'll come up with this dossier. We'll hire Steele. And then we'll let Steele cycle this story through the back channels of the New American press and Democratic lawmakers. So all of a sudden, you got this counter narrative, and Donald Trump is sitting there saying, what are you talking about?
They used the media, they used the FBI, who knew that it was unreliable, and they created the very thing that they were manipulating to suggest to the American people, and they did this to try to protect Clinton as well as try to promote her. It's outrageous, and additional individuals need to be prosecuted, and people need to be fired from jobs in both the FBI and otherwise.
And the networks didn't cover it, no cable or broadcast, because it goes right back to their loved one, Hillary Clinton.
This is the biggest news that didn't get reported. That we find out that there was no collusion between Trump and Russia, that it was created by Hillary Clinton in a campaign in July of 2016, that the CIA Director John Brennan, that the FBI Director Comey, and the President of the United States, Barack Obama, all knew about that and was never brought to Congress. Who has withheld this information?
That was GOP House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy on this program back in October of 2020, after then Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe declassified notes confirming that the Steele dossier was completely fabricated by Hillary Clinton's campaign. John Ratcliffe, the man who exposed this and other Russia lies, joins me right now.
When I became the Director of National Intelligence, I said, listen, I want to see all of the intelligence about this supposed Russian collusion. And what I found was, and as you're finding out, is there was, of course, no Russian collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. But what I did see in intelligence documents, some of which I've now declassified, that there was collusion involving the Clinton campaign and Russians to create a dossier. And so what John Brennan's notes reveal is, you know, we talk about these indictments. Igor Danchenko is now the third person to be criminally indicted in connection with the Steele dossier. For peddling something that was known to be false to the FBI. But what's important here is John Brennan's own notes reflect, and the other document that I declassified show that our intelligence community and our FBI knew this ahead of time, that Hillary Clinton, we had specific intelligence that Hillary Clinton was creating a plan to vilify Donald Trump, to falsely accuse him of ties to Russia. And the intelligence community and the FBI knew this, and President Obama, Vice President Biden were briefed by John Brennan and James Clapper and Jim Comey in early August of 2016. And John Solomon's earlier point was right. It all should have stopped at that point. Everything related to the Steele dossier was known to be untrue, but yet it was the predicate for moving forward with an unjust, unfair, and ultimately now everyone accepts a criminally negligent investigation against the Trump campaign. It was a crime to investigate Donald Trump because there was no probable cause, as FBI Director Christopher Wray has admitted under oath. There was no probable cause for those FISA applications because they used the Steele dossier and it was phony.
There was an exchange, and it shows us that Hillary Clinton has approved a plan concerning U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump and Russia and tying him to a scandal there. From then you have the CIA telling the FBI, this is the second most important document that you declassified. This is a counterintelligence operational lead. It's the CIA telling the FBI, we have this information. Hillary has cooked up this plan against Donald Trump. You need to investigate it. Tell me more.
Yeah, so why it's unfortunately what happened there is the CIA, because it can't use our intelligence authorities under the law can't be used for domestic purposes, and because this involved Hillary Clinton's campaign and people associated with it, a referral had to be made to the FBI. Unfortunately, as you see from that document, the referral went to disgraced FBI agent Peter Strzok, who had just weeks before receiving that referral had sent text messages promising to F Trump, to stop Trump, to make sure Trump would never become president. The person who was supposed to be investigating the fake Steele dossier before John Durham ever got involved was Peter Strzok. And instead what he did was bury that part of it as it related to Hillary Clinton, and instead took a dossier that he knew to be false, used it to get a FISA application that he knew to be illegal, and used it to perpetuate an investigation that went on for 4 years that misrepresented everything to the American people. And that's why everyone associated with the Steele dossier, with its creation, its peddling to the FBI, and its use by law enforcement authorities against the Trump campaign illegally, is in criminal jeopardy right now.
So do you think that that is what John Durham is looking at? Do you think we will see potential indictments?
Well, I know that, Maria, because as you know, many of the documents that John Durham is using are documents that I gave him. So I declassified the documents that we've talked about, but I gave John Durham over 1,000 other documents that have not yet been declassified that I know include intelligence that goes specifically to this criminal activity that would be the basis for further indictments.
John Brennan told President Obama that he had this information. We're going to show those pictures right now of the Oval Office where President Obama, Joe Biden were briefed by John Brennan saying Hillary Clinton has cooked up this plan to ensnare her opponent, Donald Trump. And this was way before Inauguration Day.
Well, the briefings occurred in August of 2016, so several months before the election. And again, Peter Strzok and folks at the FBI knew that the Steele dossier was a Hillary Clinton creation. And as the Danchenko indictment reflects, Maria, not only did Hillary Clinton commission the creation of the Steele dossier, people that worked for her served as the sources for that information. Charles Dolan worked for Bill and Hillary Clinton, served as state chairman of their campaigns, was appointed by Bill Clinton during his administration, and worked for the Russian Federation. He was a source of the information, some of the most salacious allegations against Paul Manafort and about Donald Trump and the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. So all of that was make-believe. It was bogus. I said a long time ago to you, Maria, I expect there to be many indictments. I haven't backed off of that, and I continue to think that there are going to be many indictments based on the intelligence that I gave to John Durham and that I have seen.
Yeah, and what happens to all of your colleagues on the left who attacked you throughout the years that you were trying to educate and inform the American people? Adam Schiff saying that there was collusion in plain sight. He saw what you saw as a congressman. He saw what Devin Nunes saw as a congressman on the Intel Committee. How did he come out and go on MSNBC and CNN and say there was collusion in plain sight? And what about Mark Warner attacking you repeatedly as you were informing the American people throughout 2018, 2019, and 2020?
Not only in that time frame as a member of Congress, but as the Director of National Intelligence, I briefed Mark Warner. I briefed Adam Schiff. I shared this information with them. And they knew that it was true. They knew that I was being truthful, but they were concerned about winning a political election. They wanted Joe Biden to win in 2020, and so that's the reason that they came out the way that they did. Look, you know, the intelligence speaks for itself. Grand juries take the actions based on the intelligence that is and evidence that is provided to them. you know, at the end of the day, the
Yep.
truth will defend itself, and it is in this instance.